r/Askreddit Redditors who have tried to hide on your cruise when it ended so that you could stay on the ship for the next round. How did that go? Used to be in the USCG. We had this happen a few times in Miami. They were all escorted off the ship. Typically the police handle the situation, but if a stowaway was discovered while still in the 3 to 12 mile range, we would render assistance once they were apprehended by the onboard law enforcement. The problem here is that you only know about the unsuccessful stowaways, not the ones that manage to pull it off. Also, is keel hauling still an acceptable punishment for stowing away? Cruise ships are rather large. I'm not sure it's possible to survive a keel haul-in from one of them, but I like the cut of your jib. It's not like you were very likely to survive it anyway. You were basically expected to die. I don't know if this counts, but my dad got locked in a toilet cubicle on a ferry to France, and it took several people to find him. The toilet was right out of the way and you couldn't hear him yelling even right outside in the corridor, because the doors were so massive. I guess he could have gone immediately back to England? Could have become a ship toilet hermit. This happened to me on a boat in Malta. I went to pee on the only toilet on board in the basement of the boat as the boat docked for a 4-hour stop. I legitimately thought I might die. It was so hot I thought I might suffocate. Finally some guy found me 15 minutes after I was screaming and pounding on the door. He let me out and then laughed about it to his friends. Sort of happened with my husband too. He used to work as a shipping agent and the crew didn't realize he was still on board the tanker until he went up to the main deck. They had already set sail for South America from the UK, but thankfully were able to get him back to land on the pilot's boat. Late to the party, but I can chime in and further add proof if needed. I worked for Carnival for 5 years, specifically in debarkation. Additionally, I worked for Disney Cruise Line and Princess Cruise Line. Here's what happens. We give you a card upon check-in, and that card is scanned the minute you step on board. Additionally, it is scanned when you leave the ship for either complete debarkation or excursions. At the end of your cruise, debarkation starts around 7 AM. Come 10 AM we receive a list of people who have not yet had their card scanned. It's impossible to get off the boat without getting your card scanned, unless you jump into the water, haha. Then a man begins to get you guys off the ship, so we can put a new 2200 to 2600 people on it. We do not start boarding new passengers until every card from the previous voyage has been scanned. In my experience, nobody ever waits and tries to hide. If you do take a cruise, book a flight that's a little bit later in the morning and go with the latest checkout time you can. So many people aim for debarking around 7 o'clock to 9 AM. Literally over 1700 people will be waiting in lines that'll take well over an hour to get out of. Instead of waiting in line for the hour, stay on board and eat some breakfast, take some last minute photos, and then when your time comes just leave, go through customs, and be on your merry way. I'm the one-stop Redditor for all cruising tips. Haha. Edit. I'm starting my commute to work, but I'll be sure to answer all questions when I get there. Close bracket. Edit 2. Alright, I'm back. Time to answer these questions. Been doing this for a couple of years now. They slapped a name tag on me, and now I work here. Hope they also took your bank account and post a monthly salary in there. Then in 20 to 30 years you walk out like it never even happened. Then after 60 to 70 years you just die like normal people and everyone will forget this story. And then in 45 trillion years the universe collapses into itself. Hey man, come on, you can't jump that far ahead in the story. I wanted to hear the rest. As someone about to embark on a cruise, this thread could hold vital information. Have fun on your cruise. I met my wife on one 7 years ago. And are you a penguin? I intend to. It's not quite the round country trip I had planned but it'll do. But no, not a penguin. You've just reminded me of my favorite joke. Me, ask me if I'm an orange. Them, are you an orange? Me, no. I've now been laughing to myself for a good 5 minutes. Thank you. Very specific target audience. I feel like Op is going on a cruise soon and has no plans for the weeks afterwards. Jail. Enjoy the cruise too much? Jail. Don't enjoy the cruise enough? Believe it or not, jail. Eat too much food at the buffet? Right to jail. We have the best passengers in the world. Because of jail. A little different. I was going through a really hard bout with depression in 2012 and really had nothing going on in life besides an overpass job at a gym. My parents decided to do a family cruise in March as our Christmas present. I was actually planning on saying goodbye to my family at the end of the trip and just getting off at the last island and not getting back on. Then I found out the cruise company would alert local authorities that I didn't get back on. I wanted to just island skip for a while instead of backpacking through Europe to do some thinking and adventuring. I didn't want to end up in some shitty Caribbean jail. It is right, they don't just leave without passengers as they could be lost and stuck. What happens if they find you and you don't want to get back on board? I have no idea, but can't think what you would go to jail for. You'd be all on your own though if you couldn't get home. Cruises leave without passengers all the time. Their terminology is actually, the boat didn't leave you, you left us. They will let the authorities know you stuck around, but usually a passport gives you at least a 90-day visa. So for the immediate future you're just stuck with no plan to get home. It's usually people who got a little too adventurous or too drunk on their shore excursion. You may enjoy or listen to the stowaway episode of the podcast Criminal. It's not someone who just didn't leave, but someone who plotted to go on a cruise without paying. It's a good listen. That was a good episode. I don't think it would work today though. And it sounded like she really didn't have a good time on the boat anyway, with no place to sleep and nothing but buffet snacks, not to mention constantly being worried about being found out. Agreed, no way it would work today, especially with security cameras. Her approach was smart, hiding in the open. Boarded for a trip from Southampton to Queenstown. Stayed on to get to New York. All was good until we hit a damn iceberg. Been 107 years and still haven't docked. F asterisk asterisk SU asterisk asterisk, man. At least the water is heating up finally though. Swimming pools are full of salt water though. Better call the maintenance guys. Also, there is a leak in my cabin. And DiCaprio keeps floating into my room unannounced. Very rude. What do the movies Titanic and The Sixth Sense have in common? I see dead people. Day 247. They still don't realize. I have been living off of seawater and Ritz crackers for the past month. I can't let them see me in the cafeteria. People tell me all the time, dude, just leave the boat, but none of them understand. Using the quarters I find on the ground, I was finally able to pay my cell phone bill again today. I got a text from some guy named Boss Dumb Name telling me that he's gonna put me in a thing of fire. Whatever, probably insane. I got a scam text from some guy named Jane calling me husband, and from police. Regardless, I'm probably gonna fry up the phone battery for more fire today. I sometimes wonder what life is like outside of the ship, but quickly dismiss those thoughts after I realize that there is no such thing as living outside of the ship. Around day 50 or 60, people in blue coats began to harass me, saying that I must go, or they're gonna find me or something. They're probably just heroin addicts, though they scared me enough to go incognito until they're gone. I found some crew clothing in the laundry and put it on. The crew was changing out at the last stop so nobody would recognize my new face. In the 2 days between the ending of one round and the start of the next leg, I found myself enjoying the nods from other crew members and a level of respect I wasn't used to having dressed as a normal passenger. I decided that I would chat up some of the bar staff and see if I'd have any luck getting free drinks. After a few beers, this new bartender came on. An old British guy. Looked like he'd seen some stuff. He had a nickname for everyone. Governor, amigo, pal, comrade. I guess he'd really traveled a lot. He kept serving me drinks with a sly wink, like from one old sea dog to another. It came time to settle my bill, as the ship was prepping for departure, and when I went to give him money, sure enough, he told me I didn't have to pay. No sir, he said, this one's on me, Captain. No trouble at all. Good luck getting us out of dock, and he pointed over my shoulder with his chin. I turned around, and the rest of the bridge crew was there with a security detail. I think a lot of you guys are underestimating how easy this would actually be. They count people. There are 2,000 passengers on a decent sized cruise ship, and at no point was everyone funneled through any sort of checkpoint, except when getting on and off the ship. You have to swipe a card, yeah, to buy something, or get into a room. You don't have to swipe it to go to the buffet, or get into the theater. A cruise ship is the size of multiple city blocks when you add up all the deck space. And there are 2,000 people walking around with no ID on them. If you wanted to stay on the ship, you could 100% do it without all that much difficulty. Your only real challenge would be finding somewhere to sleep that didn't get you harassed, except you swipe your card at disembarkation. The database would show you're still on board. Considering the number of people who die on cruises, it's quite likely they have a process to go find old Martha who sat down on the loo and will never stand up again. My ex told me this story. When we split up he said he was messed up mentally about it. If that's your excuse then okay. So he went on a singles cruise with his buddy. The problem was, he was in his early 30s and everyone else was like 45 plus. The cruise isn't helping his mood at all until they land in Jamaica and him and his buddy take a taxi to some bar in the bush. There he meets a pretty girl, wins a game of pool, life feels good again. They hear the warning signal for the cruise, so they get back on the boat. My ex was shook and didn't want to continue, so he put important documents in a plastic bag and jumped off the boat. Although he's a newfie, he swims like a rock and Jamaican authorities had to rescue him. Then they questioned him for 24 hours. Are you sane? Do you have money to get home? Until he was able to call the bar chick he had met to verify his story. They released him and gave him 3 weeks to visit/play on the island. The rest of the story is pretty boring. He stayed and played hide the weenie for a few weeks until he started getting hit up for money all the time. But the funny thing was, I met a guy from Jamaica. I live in northern Canada, and I told him this story and he knew about it. Apparently my ex's island law now lol.